Hi, I'm Karen MacNeil, and this is WineSpeed.com's People to Know, insider interviews with the most important and fascinating people in the wine business. And today we're here with Eileen Crane, who is the CEO of Domaine Carneros. She's also the founding winemaker of Domaine Carneros. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you.
So you were among the pioneers who established California and Napa Valley in particular as a place where great sparkling wine could be made. And, you know, now I think to any wine lover that seems obvious to us all. But back then, were you ever doubtful?
I was never doubtful about myself, about making sparkling wine. I knew when I was 8 years old that that's what I wanted to do. My father had a wine cellar in New Jersey, that great winemaking state, and he let me taste it. And over time, I tasted more and more champagnes and sparkling wines. And when I finished college, I would have gone into the field immediately, but there wasn't any option. I didn't know any way to get into it. I thought you were born into an Italian family in upstate New York. But little by little, I found my way into the business of wine in California.
So before you started making wine, as you said, I mean, you'd had some early exposure as a child in your father's cellar. But how much experience did you have with champagne per se?
Well, I drank champagne and the best sparkling wines I could find every chance I get or every time my pocket would allow. It was something that I sought out. And I started in a way, I got a graduate degree in nutrition and biochemistry, so I had a science background. And that combined with my love of the sparkling wine, that sort of led me to the University of California, Davis, and the opportunity to learn in a more professional way.
Right. But at Davis, they don't have a separate program for sparkling wine.
No, absolutely not. In fact, when I first called Davis, it was called fermentation science, so it was much more than just wine, but there was no sparkling wine component. I'm not even sure that there still is. I don't know that.
Right. Wow. So then how did you simply teach yourself how to make sparkling wine?
Well, I sought a summer job at Chandon when they first opened in Yountville, and I started as a part-time tour guide, and just before harvest, they asked me if I'd like to work in the laboratory for a 6-week stint during the crush season, and I accepted that job. They knew I had a science background. As a result, I finally ended up staying 6 years, not 6 weeks. And that was the background, and I built another winery before Domaine Carneros. And the Taittingers came and visited me a number of times, and we decided that we were a match, and that's where history began, 32 years at Domaine Carneros.
Wow, what an incredible story. I mean, you think about starting as a tasting room or a tour guide, you really can go right to the top.
Well, I was part-time and I almost starved that summer, so.
But you drank well.
I drank well, yes.
Right. So what do you look for personally when you're drinking either sparkling wine or champagne? How do you know when it's really good?
Well, the first thing when I appraise a sparkling wine, which is the overall umbrella for all sparkling wines, including champagne, I look for the tininess of the bubbles. Big bubbles give you this pop sensation, like a soda pop.
Right.
So I look for the fineness of bubble. That's the first thing. Then I always smell the wine. Sometimes people say it doesn't really have much aroma. Well, it does. And you don't want to fill a glass too full because you want to be able to get your nose in and appreciate the aroma. And then as you take a sip, it's a more complex operation to really appreciate the wine because you want to feel the texture of the bubbles. You also want to taste the flavor of the wine. And so you do those sort of simultaneously or over a couple of sips. And then when you swallow the wine, you look for that nice long finish. So a really fine sparkling wine has small bead, small bubbles, has a wonderful aroma, has that wonderful tickle on your palate, and in the end leaves with a wonderful long finish.
Yeah. You know, I think I sometimes forget to to pay attention. I get distracted by the bubbles, and because I love texture. I love texture in wine and food. If there was no flavor under there, I guess I would notice. But it's a good point. I've been trying to remind myself to not be completely distracted by those bubbles, even though I'm enjoying them at the same time, because it is wine after all.
Yes, it is wine, and it's serious wine.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, but then again, I'm happy to down a glass of white wine and probably pay less attention to that than I do to bubbles. So we all have our preferences of what we really want to take a look at, want to take the meditative element of enjoying a particular wine that's important to us.
Yeah. So we all remember the days when sparkling wines were sort of pigeonholed as only for, Christmas, or only for Father's Day, or only for a special occasion. And it's gotten better, but do you think that people still think about sparkling wine somewhat too narrowly?
Well, I think there's been a big change, actually very recently, where there's been a lot of interest in sparkling wine, and I think part of it was the Prosecco. And people said, well, do you feel that that's taking away from your business? And I'm like, absolutely not. I think that people will try Prosecco and will try some other less expensive wines, and little by little, a percentage of those people will want to see what's out there that's better, that's the next step up, the next grade up. And I think if I get 1/4% of those Prosecco drinkers, I am going to have to build about 3 more wineries at least. So it's, I think there's a growing interest. And I think people understand that a glass of bubbles is very festive. It starts the mood. If you get invited to somebody's house and you see them opening a nice bottle of wine, you think that's nice. You hear the sound of a cork going, you think, whoa, they're happy to see me. It changes the mood.
Yes, I used to think when I lived in New York that when you handed someone a glass of sparkling, they kind of stood up straighter, like, okay, here I am. It really does have a very profound psychological effect.
All great events start with a good glass of bubbles. It really wouldn't be, can you imagine going to some fabulous gala and they handed you a glass of Chardonnay? No, you have to have,
Exactly. Blanc de Blanc maybe, but not just still Chardonnay.
Yes.
Right. So you are a winemaker, of course, and you still have a strong hand in the winemaking at Domaine Carneros, but you're also the CEO, and you have been for a long time. What advice would you give to someone, say, in their 20s who, they think to themselves, one day I want to be the CEO of a wine company?
Well, I came up from the winemaker ranks, but that's an unusual thing. I would say that maybe 10% of the CEOs started out as winemakers. I think it is much more common that top salespeople or marketing people end up running wineries because you have to keep the winery alive in order to continue. You need to have an income source. And sometimes it's a financial person who runs the winery. So there are 3 distinct channels one may take. Of course, there's the other channel of buying one, but not everybody has the same depth of pockets as some of the people who've been buying wineries. I think that they're finding out what's in the industry, maybe taking a part-time job if you're already in another field and sort of get the feel of it, learn a little bit along the way. If you can take a vacation and work a harvest. If you're right out of college, you might look for an internship or look for a beginning position and then work your way up. I think it's, and for women in particular, it's important to look at wineries where there have been women who have been promoted to substantial positions. If you see only men at the top, you may not have a chance. So for women, it's important to look at who's running the winery or who's got high positions in the winery, and is this a good place for me to start? Because even if you don't end up there, you may find a good mentor among the women in the industry.
Very, very important point. So, lastly, Eileen, what is it about wine that moves you? Why do you have an emotional attachment to it?
Well, an emotional attachment to sparkling wine or all wine?
Well, either one.
Well, certainly my emotional attachment would be sparkling wine. If I could have one last glass in my life, it
Right.
would be
Yeah.
fine bubbles. But I think that there have been so many quotes about sparkling wine or champagne over the years,
Yeah.
and it's such an important thing in life that whether it's champagne, sparkling wines, or other wines, it sets the mood. It relaxes people. It makes them more convivial. It changes. It's that going home and having a little glass of, I'd say bubbles, but any wine. It's sort of like it breaks the day from the evening, and you relax. It's your space then. I think it's a really important part of civilization that you can have access to good wine.
Eileen, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Our full interview with Eileen Crane is at winespeed.com in the People to Know section. You'll really want to read it. It's pretty fantastic. Read it now. And I'm Karen MacNeil.